If I can tell anybody anything out there, we've covered a lot of stuff, and some of the stuff is a little bit taboo and maybe stigmatized. I feel like a lot of the activities that we were taught not to even think about 20 or 30 years ago are becoming more and more mainstream as information becomes more readily available. So
I think a lot of us get married and then it's like, let's just do this and that. And it becomes this structure, and going beyond that and being a bit more non-conventional, I think goes a long way.
Welcome to the Open Bedroom Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Kalo. Welcome to conversations about open relationships, online dating, and creating relationship dynamics that truly align for you. Hey there. Did you know that I do online coaching? Yes, I do online coaching in the sex and relationship space. Some of the topics that are near and dear to my heart are open relationships. So that includes polyamory, swinging, or what we call the lifestyle. I also love conversations around online dating. We're talking Bumble, Tinder, Field, and more. And then the last thing that's really passionate and close to my heart is conscious uncoupling. That means we get to break up with people with love and respect, with dignity and hope. We get to create a life for our children that gets to be a little bit different. We can do things better than we have in the past. So if any of these topics sound interesting to you and you'd love to get some coaching from me, check out the link in the show notes or the link in my bio for more information on coaching with Jen. Hey guys, today I have Jackie and Tala Christensen on, and this is a little bit of a unique podcast. I've actually never met them before. We were connected through one of my other podcast friends, and we're talking about sex and psychedelics. This is another topic. I think maybe I have one episode out of 140 that we've mentioned MDMA or psychedelics on, so we are going to dive deep into that today. I'm going to let you two stop and introduce yourselves, and we'll go from there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for having us on. We're both really excited.
absolutely.
And I'll start a little bit about me and then about us before I hand it over. And my name is Tala. I was born and raised in Jerusalem, and my name actually means little palm tree in Arabic. And I lived kind of in Jerusalem for most of my life, left for a little bit as an adult, and somewhere in between, I met Jackie. And living in Jerusalem was very different than how my life unfolded. I grew up in a very conservative society where sex is very much taboo. You only have sex when you're married. And so any of the education or anything related to the word sex was always a no. And that came with a lot of guilt and shame. So when I moved to the US and I went to school, even the fact of like having sex with someone, I always carried a lot of the shame and guilt. Finally got over that and started to enjoy it. And I met Jackie about 3.5 years ago.
Yeah.
I'll have him tell the version of how we met specifically, because I think it's the funnier version than mine. And I got introduced to a lot of the wild side of sex through Jackie. So my experience before that was kind of limited to, oh, you just do the things the regular way. It's sometimes fun. Most of the time, it's not actually fun. So when we met, I think part of the exploration for me was that a lot of the things that we were trying were very new, specifically for me. That's even before we brought in any of the psychedelics or MDMA, which we'll talk more into detail about that. But I think the key word too for me to even want to try, given that my whole life was all no's, like this is scary. What if my parents find out? What if society finds out? I could be at a lot of risk. And I think Jackie had a way of building that trust in me so that I was saying yes to almost everything, and things that I hadn't even imagined I would say yes to. So I will stop here before we go into a bit more of the details.
Yeah. So, hey, thanks again for having us on, Jennifer. So, my name's Jackie. I wasn't actually born with that name. I recently changed my name to Jackie. It's a hand-me-down name from the military that was actually kind of backhanded. And I feel like those are the best nicknames, a cool nickname like Maverick or Iceman that it really doesn't give you a character the way that, Jackie from, and that's a story for a different time. But yeah, so I was working for the US Embassy over in Jerusalem, and this is where I met Tala. And I'd like to say that we actually met for the first time 2 years before we went on a date. She shot me a dirty look at the YMCA gym over there. And
As I did to everybody else,
yeah,
it was non-personal.
yeah. So yeah, we got started about 2 years afterwards. We were both in the right place, and I used the excuse of, "Hey, let's go run an errand for a friend." I met her, and when we got to talking, I saw somebody who was, I would say, uh, inexperienced in a lot of ways, but like kind of an open book in the way that I can read maybe how she would react positively to some of the things, some of the ideas that I kind of want to experiment, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
How can I take somebody and give them an experience that's unique, that I know that they'll like, but that you have to actually be patient, plant the seeds correctly, because a lot of the stuff that we did try was quite foreign to her. And I was never known as a patient person. So I had to be very strategic about how I suggested these ideas. And what would you say they worked out to your benefit?
They definitely did.
Yeah.
And also, just to add one tidbit of that, is that prior to meeting Matt, or I call him Matt, so sometimes it slips like that because of the real name, and it's what I'm used to.
Yeah.
But I was coming off of a quite difficult relationship that was a little bit abusive, and so my guards were up. Like I was looking at everybody as being a potential threat, and I think the fact that we were able to switch that around and turn it into something really fun is also a testament to how we were able to heal in a way through using these
Absolutely.
psychedelics as well.
Yeah. So she went on her journey, no pun intended, and also I learned a lot about how you can actually, coach somebody or teach somebody, and a lot of trial and error that maybe she didn't even see. But I think we both came out a little bit better for it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to unwrap here. I don't know if Jennifer, you're
I
interested
know,
in
right
one
where I want to
specific.
jump in. Okay. I'm going to tell a tiny bit of a story to then get me to you guys. Okay.
Yeah.
I have discovered erotica. I've discovered erotica as porn for women in a book. Like,
Okay.
most people don't realize this until you start reading it and you're like, holy shit, like page 2 and they are already fucking. So in these books, Jackie, this makes me think of you. There's always like the naive lady. A lot of times she's like a virgin or just, has only had a boyfriend or two. And then there's like the strapping man. And in my books, there's like a lot of BDSM in there. So they have like all of this like repertoire of things in the bedroom. And they meet the little lady who just doesn't know anything. And then they get together and it's like, he's like, let me show you my electroplay tool. I'm really into knife play. So I feel like now that I'm connected into you right here, I'm feeling like a little bit of this must have happened.
Yes, it's definitely somewhat of like a 50 Shades of Jerusalem happened with this.
Yeah. And some of the ideas that he would say, I'm like, oh my God, I have no idea. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it
It's
was
so foreign. I guess foreign would be a good word for it. Like things that I maybe heard of once, but never thought that I would try.
Yeah. So I think step one was really kind of gauging where she would be. And you brought up BDSM. And I think it was the second or third date that we went back to your house and we were making out. And I decided to restrain her arms while we were doing this, just to test, like, is this something that you like? Instead of like pulling out a whole chest full of cuffs and gags and all kinds of crazy stuff. Let's see how you deal with me just holding your arms behind your back. And she couldn't have been more adorable. What did you say, dear?
It was like, you're a wild one.
You're a wild one, aren't you?
Commentary.
It was, you just have to roll with it. I'm like, okay, we'll pretend the moment's still hot. Okay, we'll keep going. And things kind of I don't want to say snowballed because that's stigmatized, I feel like, but yeah, things kind of we got a lot
Evolved.
evolved. Yeah,
Yeah.
we got a lot of momentum from there. So one of the things that she said to me while we were walking our little pup is that she said she doesn't see the necessity for narcotics. Like, and a lot of them, justly so, because a lot of them are stigmatized for a reason.
Mhm.
But through my experience, through a lot of trial and error, mostly error, I found that there are a few substances that really can open the doorways for men and women
Yeah.
to try new activities to where you're comfortable. And the technique that I had to learn, which most people don't learn, and I don't know how it took me so long to learn this, is that it's not always required that both parties take whatever it is.
Mm.
So most people,
Yeah.
somebody takes a pill, the other person takes a pill. And I find that for me personally, and I've heard a lot of anecdotes from other people, is that like it incapacitates a man in a certain to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Your creativity is a little bit mush because your brain's all over the place. And I feel that if I just drink a cup of coffee, I give her whatever activity we're planning, I can lead her through a scenario, through a journey, and never have to worry about if I'm acting funny or
Yeah, and it
it's
was reassuring for me too, because for a lot of those, it was my first time trying it. So
Mhm.
I knew that, let's say my body is reacting strange or my brain is reacting in a strange way. I knew that he was very much aware and could walk me
Mhm.
out of it rather than
absolutely.
both of us being gone.
Yes.
Incapacitated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
That is super important. And I've had that experience too. Okay. I want to take you back a couple steps because we just went from you barely restrained her arms to pills. So
We missed a few.
let's figure out how we got there. Okay. So Tala, you met Jackie and he's like, ooh, she's fresh and fun. And like, I want to see if she's into the shit that I'm into. And so he restrains your arms a little bit. Y'all play more sexually with some fun stuff. And then how do you feel about drugs? Like, I'm sure you don't say that. I'm sure you're like, do you guys call it medicine or do you call it drugs? My friends call it medicine, but they're hippies. So I don't know.
We call it
Dry.
treats.
Yeah.
Call it treats. Yeah.
Biscuits. Sometimes we say
Disco biscuits,
biscuits.
something. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, the first thing that I think we attempted was I think Adderall. Did we do that? I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also just to give you a little bit of background of on my life too. Not only was it super conservative, Jerusalem has very different neighborhoods, and it depends where you are on how open-minded or not. My family is quite in the minority, and so it mine was kind of strict. And I also went to an all-girls school that was run by nuns. It was a Catholic school.
Oh yeah.
So like the way I was brought up is like, you don't even take too much Advil a week. Like you need
Right.
to watch out of any pill you're taking. So I think the first time he did mention anything related to drugs, I was like, oh my God, no, my brain will never be able to handle that. Like
Yeah.
there's no way. So I think there was a little bit of coaching and what he talked about earlier about the need versus want. Like the way I was classifying experiences in my life was, do you need it or not? And
Mhm.
that's how I was making my decisions. Like, do I need this? Yes, no. I wasn't really thinking of my wants and my desires. Like, that was something that was always a byproduct of whatever we were doing. And
Mhm.
I think after that discussion is when I started to think beyond, okay, it's not just about your needs. Like, yeah, you do get your needs met, but there's beyond your needs in life and in your relationship.
Okay, I want to hear more about this. So tell me more about this. Again, we keep jumping to the drug thing, but I want to understand bigger picture. Jackie, why did you even bring this to your relationship? What are you experiencing on your end that you're saying, I want to share this with my person? You mentioned Adderall. Why that? Like, what does that do? What do these
So
things do?
yeah, yeah. So I felt like that was a light one to kind of bring up. It's a legal substance. You can get a prescription for it. I had a prescription for it at the time, but I wanted to do baby steps. I didn't want to hit her with anything, anything too. By the way, I do want to make a comment. It is a fun cliche that you're feeling right now. Open woman, sexually in charge of her sexual destiny. Used to be Catholic schoolgirl. I love that.
The truth is the
Yeah,
The truth is,
tried
yeah.
and true. Okay, yeah. So, but I guess to dive into that and where my motivations might be for trying things that are a little bit unconventional is that I had very checkered past when it came to a lot of things. And I don't know if this goes too in depth, but the reason why I wanted more out of my sex life is confusion and a struggle that I dealt with. I don't know if this is TMI, but
No, please.
I have low sensitivity in my nether regions that I've actually had stem cells in there. So like just to try to see if we can't juggle something up. So a lot of the things when I would have sexual intercourse for the first time, for the first times, for the first however many years, I didn't understand what all the excitement was about. So if I can put this to maybe give an example, like my sneeze is about twice as pleasurable as my orgasm. So like the motivation, I feel like for a lot of men to that, like they just want to go from, unfortunately, it's like from girl to girl to girl to girl. Like I didn't have that impulse, and I was
Yeah.
struggling to find like the entertainment aspect of sex that all my friends are boasting about. So that's where this kind of open door, or I wanted to open the door rather, this different reality to where I was more mentally stimulated by the things that I saw, by the experience I was giving to my partner, rather than physically stimulated.
Yeah.
And in doing so, it turns into a physical stimulation. But I feel that the pleasure I get, and I know it is different than, had I been born with everything functioning the correct way.
Yeah.
So,
And also I think for me as being on the receiving end of all of that, especially in the beginning, is that I could tell the difference between him and other partners that I've had, that it was much more about me. Like, how am I feeling? And I think you derive a lot of your pleasure
yes.
from making
Giving
sure
pleasure.
that I'm having a great time. So also that was a very clear difference of like most men that I was with before. It's like race to the finish, right?
Yeah.
Like racing to the finish line. It wasn't so much about me. But here there was so much care put into it, like whether it's preparing for the night or just attending to how I'm feeling
Yeah.
usually.
So yeah, I don't know if that goes back to the whole question of what you asked, Jennifer, but yeah, so I would say that'd be the genesis of like trying new things. I'm not sure if I would have tried new things had I been okay, but here we are anyway. And I'll say that, one man's disability is another man's blessing.
There you
And so now we have a whole range of tools in the tool shed.
Yeah.
And it is always fun, especially when you introduce, and I don't know if you've experienced the same thing, but when someone sees something that maybe or experiences something that maybe they were a little bit hesitant about, reluctant to even try, but are smiling about and saying, "Oh my gosh, that was fantastic." There's nothing that warms my heart
Yeah.
more. And I got a lot of those with Tala. So, you get so many heartwarming moments, you got to marry her. So that's what happened with it.
I'm curious if outside of drug/medicine and you guys adding some BDSM stuff into your tool belt, does that also help with like the mind fuckery part at all for you? Does that help make you feel that connection that maybe physically you're not feeling? Or is it more that taking drug/medicine makes sex kind of not worth it, but like makes you feel more connected?
I mean, I'm going to try to see if I can answer that the best way. We do feel connected in a lot of ways, especially when we're talking to other couples. And, every couple has their own special thing. So we don't think it's not a straight line as to who's
Yeah.
doing better. There's a spectrum of stuff, and people that are quite vanilla. Maybe they are boring in all aspects of life, but maybe they have stuff that's non-sexual, that's special to them that we haven't experienced yet, So
Yeah.
to put the judgment on that, I do, though, however, feel it when we are talking to other couples. That being said, I do feel it when I hear my friends talk about their sex life or the lack thereof with their significant
Yeah.
partner. And it does, yeah, it's a little moment of pride for us, because even when we're fighting, that never drops.
Yeah, and
It's
also just to really add to that, a lot of my girlfriends in Jerusalem who are married, they don't even feel like, I know for some of them the sex is quite vanilla, or
Yeah.
that it's awkward, like it's an awkward conversation that they can't even bring up with their partners. And I think for us, these experiences have made it so that we can talk about anything related to sex, like the good and the bad. And if
Yeah.
we do like an after action, like, did you like that? Did you like this?
Always an after
Yeah.
action.
So I feel like
Always.
it doesn't obviously substitute our sex on a daily basis,
Yeah.
but I feel like it enhances it in other ways, and it makes it so that we're more open with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Great.
can I tell you something juicy a little bit that really helped with the trust? And Tala was the first person that I tried this with. And this was an experiment. Something that I felt, and you can tell me yay or nay, but I think it's going to be
Mhm.
yay. So something that we always had, but we have a lot of activities that we do with a partner, but we do them alone, right? We go to the bathroom alone. We do other things alone. And one thing I wanted to try, and I think it really worked out. So we shave each other's nether regions, like the whole thing. And we did that since the beginning, and I feel like
It was a bonding experience.
it was a bonding experience, and it's also like I've never done that before, but I feel like that's something, even though it almost seems like it's a little bit too far off from the experience that we're talking about, to create that comfort and that trust that that person's down there. And not everything's always pretty down there on a man and a woman. So it's like that thing, it's like the sex. It's not always going to be pretty. It's not always going to be, showing up in your Sunday's best. But yeah, so I really think that helped emulsify our sexual relationship and how comfortable we can be around other people when talking about this.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay. So I'm curious. Let's talk again one more time, big picture, and then we'll drop into different types of drugs. So big picture, how often are you guys adding the drug component in? Is it all the time? Is it infrequent? Is it quarterly? Like, why necessarily are you? Help our listeners and viewers understand why and when you would do this.
I would say because it does take quite a bit of preparation. Once every 2 months, when we're doing it like
more consistently.
Yeah. If we have a lot of stuff going on, I would say it's quarterly. We're doing it once every 3 months.
Yeah.
A lot of the activities that we would need those things for, or would think would complement a night like that, are activities that you're going to have to recover from anyway. So you're going to have to give yourself substantial amount of recovery time. If there's like a holiday, whether it lands on a Friday or a Monday, this creates an opportunity for us. And so like if it's going to be Labor Day, if it's going to be Memorial Day, these are things that we've marked on the calendar, and we do the preparation beforehand. Some of the preparation she doesn't see until she comes home. Let's set up the room, and I rehearse sometimes, depending on because I wanted to go for a while, like I don't want it to be just an hour thing, not for all this, we're going to go 5-6 hours. And depending on, you're not just going in and out for 5-6 hours, you're creating the scenario so that it's believable. And that's also where the narcotics come into play, is that it for you, it makes it a bit more real than just doing some hokey role playing, which can be like, am I really the teacher? Am I, not that we do anything like that, but.
Okay. I want to hear about this specifically. Tell us what this means. What are you doing? What is 5 or 6 hours of sex on things in it? Like, people, I'm telling you, my followers, when I say Kim and Nami 3-hour sex date, have y'all ever had sex for 3 hours? They do not understand. And I try to explain it, because my partner and I have sex for hours, and when we have, threesomes, it's a whole evening thing, sometimes in the morning. So can you explain what y'all's version of this is like?
Yes, absolutely. So I would say where it first came into play, the first activity was anal sex. So Paula he was reluctant to try any of these things. And that was another thing. She told me a story that had happened way back in the past. Maybe you want to keep that to yourself. Maybe you don't. But so I knew that I had to be gentle with this. Now, me personally, I know there's a lot of fellas out there, men and women, who maybe like the idea of giving that, but have never received it themselves.
Right.
I have received it. Not only I've been pegged, but I've also played with the boys in a different part of my life. So I have an intimate understanding of kind of the do's and don'ts, more along the lines of don't do this. This is going to hurt.
Yeah.
So I think that's actually better than like the perfect technique of what not to do. So you don't create a scar, a mental scar. And so the first time we did this, we went with MDMA, and the route of administration is very important here. So I don't know if anybody's taking notes, but
I'm like,
so
maybe we need to create a guide from this. Okay, I'm ready.
yeah.
Guide.
So bioavailability when you eat a pill is about 60%. And also your stomach acid does certain things to whatever compound it is. So you get whatever it is. Let's just say it's a gram of something.
Yeah.
You're only digesting maybe a half of that. Now, I've found through my experience that if you mix that with a little bit of liquid and you squirt it up the person's rear end, yes. So understand, this is where we get I love that she
Science part.
she has a degree in biochem. So she's like, oh.
So he broke it down to me like in a very scientific way that
Yes.
I would really absorb.
Yes.
Well, okay,
no pun intended, really absorb. Yes.
He's like, it's very important I put this up your ass.
Yes.
Here's the science.
In a scientific way. Okay.
So bioavailability jumps to almost 100% that way. It doesn't have to deal with stomach acid. And it almost becomes a different, it does become a different experience.
It's a lot more intense.
And that area wants it.
Yeah.
You can start like within about 10 minutes of me squirting that up there. They have like, little lube shooters that you can buy at, Fascinations or wherever, sex stores around there. All you got to do is fill that up with a little bit and squirt it up there. And within about 10, 15 minutes, you could start to see that area throb.
Like hungry for it.
Hungry for it. Yeah. And it doesn't happen when you eat it.
Yeah.
It's interesting that way. And you know what? A lot of people turn their nose up at it, and that's fine. We'll be the ones having fun.
Okay.
But so that for that particular activity, I would say that's our go-to supplement.
And also I think back to your question on like the 5 hours, right? I think even in normal circumstances, it's not always a quick thing, right? Usually we do take our time and we are having sex for longer than 20 minutes typically. I think on that too, it's the whole experience. So it's not just like the 5 hours of straight having sex, but it's like part of it is also me cleaning. So before going into anal, like I make sure that I'm clean, and that is a little bit of a process.
That's a pain in the
Yeah. And then we're actually also talking for part of it and having sex and taking breaks and changing positions and scenarios and bust out the sex bench and like just different. He walks me through different scenarios. Usually. So it's I think it's rather than like, oh, it's 5 hours of just sex. I think it's like a whole experience of a night.
Yeah, you take breaks, you kind of see what would best fit, what scenario would best be the next. I mean, like the first time I had anal sex with Tala, we actually had a conversation for about an hour and a half, just like while doing this. It was the weirdest thing. I'm like, I want to remember this moment of how odd it is that we were talking about like, oh yeah, and then what did you do, a week ago, and how did that make your parents feel, and like things that were non-sexual. We just had like a conversation. It just felt, which is odd, even replaying it, but
Help our listeners understand what it feels like to be on MDMA.
Take it from here.
Ooh, so I'll go back to my first time, because the first time I feel like I had no idea what to expect. Like I had mostly heard from some of my friends that have done it in the US that they would just take it at a concert or like at a festival. So I thought it's more like, oh, you just want to like dance and look at all these visuals. For me, it was like a very tingly body sensation that I was getting, like very lusty and lovey. And I just couldn't, even when Matt would put his arms around me, I'd feel like this rush on my body. So I feel like, and then I wanted, even touching something just felt so soft. And I was just enjoying, like all of my senses were very heightened. So one aspect is of course the sexual one, and especially like making anal sex for me much more enjoyable. But the other part of it is also heightening all the senses. So not just sexually, but even just touch, I feel like becomes much more intense.
Yeah, that's another thing with the route of administration. It makes that particular drug way more sexual.
Yeah.
You know, where you would take it, just want to hug and maybe talk about your feelings with somebody or go see some light show at
Yeah.
a rave or something like this. When you do it that way, there's only a few things on your mind. Cuddling and having sex, and cuddling is a far second.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And there's something about it too, at least other than the senses, that felt like it was expanding my mind too, because of the fact that all of these experiences were so new. I felt like I was much more open to receiving new ideas in those moments. Like, "Oh, yeah, tell me more about that." Or even I remember one time we were talking about maybe more difficult conversations, and I just felt like I'm much more receiving to everything. Like you
Yes.
absorb more, you absorb everything.
For somebody that wants to show their partner maybe a different look at a sexual activity, and you think either through conversations you've had with them, or maybe they flat out told you, I don't think I'll like this.
Yeah.
Always respect someone's boundaries, obviously. But if it's like a soft, I don't want to say a no, but if it's a, if it's a
Maybe.
hesitation, it can help lift some of those barriers that would prevent you from even bringing up the subject or trying that particular activity in a mild way.
Yeah.
And we went mild to wild pretty fast, I'd say. Yeah.
So would you say it's like a bit of a truth serum, maybe? Like it's hard to lie on it? Because you're like,
Mm,
this is how I feel. I've been feeling this for a while. This is what I want to say. No?
I wouldn't say like that, but I feel like I start to look at things from a different perspective. I'm like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, okay, so that makes sense. Like I think especially with if we look at wiring, like and my own wiring was very strict and rigid. I feel like it starts to break down that rigidity and I'm much
Mhm.
more flexible in how I start to think about things. So for someone like me who has always been very structured, and I feel like it almost takes me on a little mental break too of like,
Mhm.
okay, we can leave this structure right now and we can like break out from all this rigidity. So it's
Yeah.
it's almost like a little mental break too.
It was nice to see that. Yeah, she had a pretty demanding job in Jerusalem. She was working
Yeah.
for the UN, and it's write this report after this report after this report, and it's an uphill battle there because you have a lot of foreign donors that kind of don't understand the dynamic of the communities that she's working in.
Yeah.
So they have you're bringing Western ideas to a very closed off society in a lot of areas. So I could see her coming home and just like, oh my God, I had to do another thing for
Yeah.
another donor that wants this. And it's nice to see that you could provide that kind of break.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was my best experiment.
Oh, Jackie, I have a question for you about placement. So I'm just taking you back a few steps. So you mentioned when you put it in anally that
Yes.
you feel sexual more in your genitals than you do just cuddle puddle. Because I think we hear a lot of people take MDMA and then they just do a giant cuddle puddle and just lightly touch each other for however many hours it lasts. Because
Gosh,
even that feels amazing, right?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you like my experience, and I've only had one. I didn't feel my genitals at all. Like it was like a
Oh,
hollow, there was nothing there, but everything felt amazing. Like the person I was with like took a feather and just lightly, or took her hands and lightly, and I was just like giggling and laughing and just like, oh my God, this feels so good. Just moving my body felt amazing just to move your hips a little. And I was like, what is happening? This is so ecstatic. And we had some food and we have some beverages. So this is a good tip. I guess I'm curious if you have, you guys are, science-y a little bit, but like, why do you think putting it so close to your genitals, maybe it activates there?
Yeah, it could be. I'm not sure that there actually have been trials or anything, clinical trials to kind of see what the difference is.
well, use for caution.
People are
Right.
monitoring different areas to see if one area is heating up versus the other area or something like this. But
Gotcha.
there definitely is a difference, and not just from her perspective too. When I've done it, I've done it both ways. It's a noticeable change, and
Fascinating.
you want a little bit of the cuddling, but it's. I mean, you definitely want the cuddling, but it takes a
Sure.
back seat. to everything
Yeah.
else.
And maybe it's your
And
intention. Like if you want to take MDMA and you want to cuddle with a big group of people, go for it.
Right.
absolutely.
If you want to
Yeah.
take MDMA and you want to fuck your person for a few hours and
Yeah.
experience that,
Well,
that's a whole
that's
other thing.
different.
So which
Yeah.
leads
Yeah.
me to the title is Sex and Psychedelics. We haven't talked at all about psychedelics. When I did my MDMA experience, I flipped into mushrooms after we did a hippie flip. So I'm curious, do you guys want to talk at all about psychedelics?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Take it away. She has the best
Oh my
psychedelic
gosh.
story.
Okay.
Yeah, the first time I heard somebody talk about magic mushrooms, I was in Jerusalem, and the person that was talking about it said, "Oh, it expands my mind." And I think I laughed at the time because I was just like, "What are they saying? What do they mean?" I had no idea. Like I had never experienced that. And that was part of my nose, like, "Oh, we would never do that one." But the first time I did that was after we had moved from Jerusalem to Phoenix,
Yeah.
actually. And I was going through a bit of a hard time because I had just left my family and I was living really close to them for 8 years. And just a lot of change. Came to Phoenix, didn't know anybody. And we're like, okay, let's try it. So interestingly enough, I took like initially 3 grams, which because to gauge what's going on.
Yeah.
And I wasn't feeling anything. I looked at Jackie, I'm like, I don't think I feel much. And then we take another one. So now I'm at like what, 6 grams?
6 grams. Yeah. Which is that's more than a hero dose.
Yeah,
So
and it took me a while to feel anything, but once I did, I mean, the mental journey that it took me on, and it also got some things out of me that I didn't know were trapped. I had always thought all of along my life that my difficult relationship was with my mother and not my father. And while you're on mushrooms, you're seeing a lot of memories. And I was seeing a lot with my father. And I was thinking, oh my God, I never knew that this was something so deeply ingrained that I didn't ever consciously think about it. So seeing that aspect and then how just the reflection that you do on that, on how it kind of puts up a mirror for you to see how you've been behaving, whether that's a specific, and there are times when I'll go into a journey thinking, oh, today I want to focus on what I said to Matt 2 weeks ago, because I don't think that was a great thing to say. And the way my journey goes is like, well, while you think that this is what you want us to think about, actually, the underlying problem is here. So let's go into the underlying problem of why you even got to say that. And it's just such a, I always say, like, if there's something I would give to even my parents, this is an experience I would even want my parents to do, because I think the
absolutely.
level of reflection and the difference in your perception on that can really be beneficial for anybody trying it. So
Yeah.
my experience has been amazing. And the way we also use it as a couple too is that sometimes if we are going through maybe a hard time, it really helps both of us kind of reflect on each one, what we're doing, where's our part. And then after that, we both come to talk about it. And I think
Absolutely.
it's always been super helpful for us
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, a big part of, people arguing is that your ego kind of gets involved, right? We've all gotten into those arguments where you go back and forth and it gets nasty, and pretty soon
Yeah.
you're just throwing jabs that are nowhere remotely close to finding a solution. And I feel like what mushrooms in particular does, I mean, it's known for this, is melting the ego.
Yeah.
So, and you could really listen to your partner in a way, and you can also reflect on yourself. So, if I'm understanding you correctly, Jennifer, you kind of did yours in a social situation where you were having fun with people, and it was more along the lines of that, or was it kind of more alone?
With mushrooms?
Yeah.
I've done both. I've done friends around a campfire under the stars,
Yeah.
on the earth, under the trees, and it being very, very much in my mind and feeling very connected to everything and almost weeping because you realize your insignificance, yet we're all connected. Like I've had that experience. I've did it with the hippie flip where we first did MDMA, which is the only time I've ever done an MDMA. And then flipping into your mind where you have no body. At least for me, when I do mushrooms, my body doesn't even exist and it's all in my mind. and doing that with her side by side was really, really special. And for me, sometimes when I come down off of mushrooms, I do get a little horny. Like my body becomes alive again, and I'm like, "Ooh, this feels really good." And it's like a tiny bit like MDMA, but nothing to the extent MDMA is. But there's a little bit
Yeah.
more aliveness than there normally is, and water tastes amazing in my mouth, and blueberries explode, and I love all of that.
Yeah.
Can definitely relate to the food. She has to like lock the refrigerator if we ever do it. I will eat until I have a swollen belly. It's the weirdest thing. I have
Oh,
no
that's
idea.
interesting.
Yeah.
Because I
But
don't ever
yeah,
feel super hungry after, but I want to experience that extra sensation in my mouth.
Yeah.
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 So it's an experience that we have yet to do in like a social setting where we've been out. Typically, we've only ever done it inside the house. We want to do some self-reflection. We feel stressed out about work. There's something going
Yeah.
on, and maybe we can't quite put our finger on it. So I feel like this is a way for us to, and maybe we don't find, this is not like for anybody that's listening, it's not like a 100% solution.
Yeah.
But I would say it definitely, you got to find more clues to what might be going on in your life than had you be using your sober mind or any other method, at least in our experience. So other people might vary. They might be too distracted by all the visuals they're seeing. For us, we use this as a time to close our eyes, go on our head, see what's important in life, and maybe what we call it the mushroom lady, what the mushroom lady wants to clip out of our lives.
What
And
lessons do
we
we
get
need
specific instructions
learn?
when we come out of it. We're like, okay, we need to get rid of that, right? You felt that too? And she's
Yeah.
like, yes, okay. So the mushroom lady was had the right
Wow.
advice for both of us.
Do you
Yeah.
guys touch each other through the whole thing, or are you totally
Oh,
separate?
yeah.
Yes.
Definitely. I think so yeah, I think you mentioned it a little bit, like the weeping part. Every single time when I'm on that, kind of like midway through the
Mhm.
journey, I'm usually weeping, and we're hugging each other and like, oh, I love you. And I don't know why I do that. And it's like, yeah, definitely we are touching each other. There was one time where I think we both got horny afterwards.
She got
But
horny, and
we're twins.
I just, yeah, I'm horny too. I'm not gonna, I'm there to play my part.
Support.
For whatever reason, it's kind of like how you explained your MDMA experience. When I take mushrooms, sex is the furthest thing from my mind. It's
Mhm.
and it's even afterwards, like the afterglow is. I try to get myself there, but I would say if there's going back, 20 minutes in our conversation, if there's one good thing about the stem cells is that I have 100% control whether I'm turned on, turned off. It doesn't matter. That was money well spent. I could just tell it to work, and it does it. So
What?
I mean,
Okay.
yeah,
That's what we need to bookmark for the next
yeah.
conversation, because I need to understand stem cells in your dick. That
Oh,
sounds
yeah.
fascinating. And I do have
This,
quite a few friends that are men that don't have sensation or very little sensation.
Mm.
One of them just had spinal surgery and it's fixed it.
wow.
All of a sudden, he's like,
Oh.
oh my gosh, I have all this sensation. So it was a nerve thing for him,
Wow.
but
oh my
it
gosh,
has to
yeah,
be incredibly frustrating. Anyway, I know
yeah,
that's a different conversation, but I just,
yeah. Just the Cliff Notes on that one. Yeah, I had chronic ED forever. And so it's nice that it worked in that. I mean, it's amazing that it worked in that way.
Yeah.
I feel like it paid for itself, the amount of money I was spending on
Yeah.
Cialis and Viagra, and I haven't purchased any of that stuff in years now. So it's like money well spent. I made up for it, when I look at my receipts from the pharmacy and the zero receipts now. But yeah, it definitely it's a game changer, but it's not. I'm not sure what the success rate is out there. I think it's such a new procedure that
Yeah.
yeah.
okay. So I'm going to stop real quick and say, if you guys are listening to this and you want to hear Jackie come back and talk about stem cells and ED and all of that stuff, let me know, let us know, and we'll have him come back on. Okay. Let me push play again, because we only have a few more minutes, and I want to hear about Talia and your clothing line. And I'm assuming all of this has just been an unfolding as you went all through the psychedelics and the BDSM and the opening in your relationship. And now you have this super sexy clothing line.
Yeah. Well, we have the BDSM shirt on that we could maybe show
Yeah.
too. I don't know how
If you
close it
want.
is.
There we go. If we could do that.
See
So
that?
up close, it looks like,
Nice.
there we go. I don't know if you're able to see that at all, but so it looks like pink ropes,
Mhm.
and maybe we can post or send you a picture or two.
Yeah, we could send a close up.
It's pink ropes, and it looks very like, innocent. But when you get up closer, when the UV effect hits it, when the UV effect is completely invisible until under the UV light,
You can see a bit.
you see women that are tied up. It's all BDSM-inspired.
That's awesome.
What's funny is I'm doing massage therapy right now, and I brought this to my students who I thought were very vanilla, my fellow students, and everybody wanted that shirt. Everybody, I'm like
There's a winner.
from the 22-year-old to the 52-year-old mom. I want that BDSM shirt. So that was a good one. But the genesis on that one was we used to be realtors, and we were looking for ways to stir up business. And yeah, I bought a t-shirt press so we could make t-shirts for people and then talk to them. Or do you own? Are you looking to buy? Are you renting right now? To keep the conversation going, to give them a reason to stay there. And nobody wanted to buy the boy shirts. Nobody wanted to buy the boring stuff. People wanted the lowbrow.
Girl tops.
People wanted the sexier things. And that just kind of was up my alley because this is maybe for a different time. But I kept lingerie always in any apartment I ever had because I feel like when you tell a woman that you're dating, hey, come buy in lingerie, I feel like the choices are safe. So, and I want fishnets, I want, a garter belt. I want, so I would always say, oh, an ex-girlfriend left these over here and it's never been opened. It's not they're packaged.
In a new package.
Never once did anybody push back. It was just like, okay, and unwrap. And I mean, I used the same.
You did.
Yeah. So
same
I already had a knack for it, so it's been great to build this together. I think the product is novel. And that's also a pain in the butt because you can't find help or parts for what we're doing. But yeah, it's great. Never washes out. And you don't know that she's wearing something dirty until she wants you to know.
Until the UV's on.
Until the UV's on.
Yeah, you need a UV light. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Okay. So are these for sale? People can buy them?
Yeah.
Nerdyanddirty.com. You can log on and check our stuff. Don't go to Instagram Nerdy and Dirty. Someone ripped us off. Oh my God bless. They just, I don't know, they took our logo. Who knows? But nerdyanddirty.com, they're for sale. I'm going to be putting some more stuff on this week. We've got leggings. We have see-through mesh that I'm able to do this on. So you think you're wearing nothing? We have fishnets.
This is awesome because I have been to a couple glow parties through my whole lifestyle scene. And if you get on Amazon, like there is hardly anything. It's really like junior sizes. And like, I don't know, you guys have some really interesting things, I think. So I will put the link below to the website. What do you want to say to close this up? Any lasting thoughts? Anything you want to leave? Go for it.
Tell you what, if I can tell anybody anything out there, we've covered a lot of stuff and some of the stuff is a little bit taboo and maybe stigmatized. The word no never leads to a good story. No is never the start of a good adventure. So no can also lead you to Pain Town,
Good lessons.
Yeah. But I feel like having an open mind, not going off of what the Catholic school teacher wants you to do, and just follow your heart, have a trusty partner, and there's some literature on this stuff now. I feel like a lot of the activities that we were taught not to even think about 20 or 30 years ago are becoming more and more mainstream as information becomes more readily available. So with that, I'll leave you with that.
Yeah, and just to have fun with each other. I think a lot of us get married and then it's like, let's just do this and that. And it becomes this structure, and going beyond that and being a bit more non-conventional, I think goes a long ways.
Absolutely.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. You guys stop, check out the website below, see if there's anything on there that you need. Grab something fun and maybe try something unconventional. All right. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Open Bedroom Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, go ahead and give us a like and click subscribe below and stay up to date on all the new episodes that we release. If you have a topic that you'd really like more information on, leave us a comment below and we'll see what we can do. Feel free to share this podcast with all of your friends and especially your partners. This is a great way to open up some amazing conversations. We'll see you next week.